And in more news from Guyana, executive member of the People's Progressive Party, PPP, Anil Nandlal, has sought to clarify his party's stance on the National Unity Committee. First, statements out of the country had earlier mentioned that the parliamentary opposition, the PPP, had declined to sign on to the National Unity Committee because it did not trust Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu and Minister of Public Security Kemarj Ramjatan. Speaking with the CEEN News team on Tuesday, Mr. Nandlal says that's not the case.
The President proposed to the Leader of the Opposition that he has the intention of establishing a National Unity Committee and he wants the PPP to be a part of it. The Leader of the Opposition responded by saying that he has to discuss it with the PPP. 2 or 3 days after, it is announced in the press, not of course by the President because he doesn't say anything, by ministers in his government, that Moses Nagamutu will lead a team. And Moses Nagamutu himself is quoted in the press as inviting the PPP to form a national unity government. Being part of a national unity committee, and we say to that, we have to discuss it with our party. Then Nagamutu now comes out and says that he's inviting us to be part of a national front government. That is completely different from being part of a national unity committee. And more significantly, why is the President not extending that invitation? And Nagamutu's invitation is radically different from the invitation which the President extended. So I don't know whether Nagamutu and the President are on the same page. And when you are extending such an important invitation, one would expect that it would be in writing, addressed to our party, rather than reading it in the newspapers. So we are not sure whether these people are serious or whether it's political grandstanding and they are saying things that will activate public support in their regard.
Mr. Nandlal says it should never be the Prime Minister who deals with the opposition leader on matters of national importance. Instead, it should be the President. He says, however, that if the proper channels are followed in making the request of the opposition, they would not be against a unified government. In fact, he says that has always been a part of the PPP's style of government.
It's always been part of our politics from our inception. The politics of the PPP has always embraced the concept of national unity, the concept of racial unity, the concept of cohesiveness as a whole. So that has always been part of our philosophy.
However, Mr. Nandlal cautions that before any unified government is considered, there are critical questions to be answered.
National unity is a politically sexy thing to talk about, but how will it manifest itself in a constitutional structure like ours? If, for example, the PPP joins this government, who will be the opposition? Who will scrutinize opposition conduct in the parliament? Who will put nominees up for the service commissions that are so important to watchdog the exercise of executive power? Who will scrutinize public expenditure in the Committee of Supply in the Parliament, in the Public Accounts Committee? Who will, for example, oversee the appointment of judges? Because, you know, judges are appointed by the government consulting with the opposition. How are you now going to guarantee judicial independence if everybody is going to be in the same government? Are we going to bid goodbye to electoral politics, for example? Because if everybody is in the government, who will be for elections anymore? So these are questions that have to be answered. We cannot continue to glibly talk about national unity and national front government without explaining to the population how this thing will manifest itself. If we go along that path, we will have to amend our constitution. The amendments are going to be so fundamental that it will require a referendum, so we have to go to the people for a vote. When you go to the people for a vote, you have to tell the people what is it that you're proposing, what are they voting for. So long before we reach that stage, the leaders and those who are advocating course of national unity and national front government must tell us intelligently and must tell the country intelligently what is it that they're proposing. I don't even think they understand what they're proposing.